Fast and Furious 11's ending will be more difficult to pull off than you think after the franchise's $7.3 billion success. I'm worried that Fast and Furious 11 won't be able to provide a satisfying conclusion to the long-running franchise. The first Fast and Furious movie was released in 2001 and introduced now iconic characters like Dom, Brian, and Letty. However, since the franchise has been going on for so long, it has changed in a lot of ways. For example, the early Fast and Furious movies were primarily focused on street racing, whereas the most recent films in the series prioritize over-the-top action and crazy stunts. However, it has been reported that the upcoming Fast and Furious 11 will return to the franchise's street racing roots. It makes sense for the final Fast and Furious movie to honor the first film in the series, but I'm still not confident that Fast and Furious 11 can top some of the best endings of the franchise. For example, the endings of Furious 7 and F9, the Fast saga, are specifically very well done and emotional. Therefore, I'm doubtful that Fast and Furious 11 can pull off another emotional ending that also feels definitive. Fast and Furious had a lot of perfect finales, but the franchise continued anyway. As the series started to embrace action more than its street racing roots, Fast and Furious became one of the biggest franchises in Hollywood. Based on its box office success, it's not a surprise that the franchise has lasted so long. However, the Fast and Furious franchise realistically could have ended with the 7th, 8th, or 9th entry. In fact, there were actually talks about ending the franchise with Furious 7 since Paul Walker's tragic death leads to Dom and Brian going their separate ways. However, Vin Diesel ultimately decided to continue the franchise past Furious 7 to honor Walker. Surprisingly, the fate of the Furious and F9 also provided satisfying conclusions. At the end of the Fate of the Furious, Dom and his crew enjoy a barbecue together in New York. Meanwhile, at the end of F9, the main crew once again gather for a barbecue. However, in this film, they are joined by Brian. Despite these emotionally satisfying endings, the Fast and Furious franchise has continued. Fast and Furious 11's ending will have to feel definitive, this time for real. If Fast and Furious 11 wants to convince fans that it actually is the final film in the franchise, then it needs to have an ending that actually feels definitive. Many fans would argue that having another barbecue is the perfect ending for Fast and Furious 11. However, since several movies in the series have ended with a barbecue, it wouldn't be very effective. The death of Dom at the end of Fast and Furious 11 would justify the franchise completely ending, but I don't think this will happen. Therefore, I truly believe Fast and Furious 11 will have a very hard time pulling off a satisfying ending for the franchise that also feels definitive. This is one of the main downsides of a franchise that seems to never stop. Since Dom and the other Fast and Furious characters have always returned in the past, the final movie in the series needs to do extra work to prove to fans that there is no reason for them to return again. This won't be easy, which is why I'm worried about the ending of Fast and Furious 11.